All right, guys, here we go. Down a rabbit hole all about how much Kate hates John.
Tonight, speaking out for the first time ever, John minus Kate.
I feel like I was abused for 10 years.
This chapter, we're going to call it chapter 17, is called The Great Communicator. And it's obviously being said in a facetious kind of way because the chapter is all about all of these email communications that Hoffman finds between Kate and people in her life, and what a horrible, terrible snob and bitch she is to everyone.
What he says really went on inside the marriage, and the exact moment it came to an end.
The next thing out of her mouth was, I don't even know why we got married.
Chris Cuomo, John Gosselin.
Hoffman specifically states, Kate's communications with others tell a lot about her personality and reveal a distinct superiority complex. She is condescending and dismissive towards anyone who has nothing of value to her. So I think Hoffman, he makes it clear that if she is going to get something from someone, she can be a little bit nicer, a little bit more tame in her responses, a little bit more suck-up-ish in her written interactions with people. But in the first part of this chapter, Hoffman just goes through and points out some shitty interactions Kate had with several people through her emails.
And the questions we all want answered about Kate.
If she said to you, I want to work it out, let's try again.
The children.
You feel like you let them down.
I won't know.
Almost all of these emails are interactions that would have included John. And in many of the paragraphs where he talks about it, he'll say like, this email was forwarded to John, then forwarded to Kate. It looks like if anyone ever sends any kind of communication to John, he immediately forwards it to Kate and then waits for her response about what to do about it.
Who left who?
Was Kate dating somebody?
Tonight, the tabloids, the affair with Haley,
My heart pounds, I get sweaty, I don't know.
the rumors, and he says the truth.
Fair?
Unfair.
So it's clear that Kate is running the whole show. She tells John like how to react to people reaching out and saying like, can I have an interview with you? Are you interested in getting some diapers from our company? All of that gets filtered to Kate, and then she tells him what to do about it.
What happens behind closed doors doesn't always stay there. Family secrets.
Just to give you an idea of what these interactions are like, for example, one of the emails is from an Ohio University student, and this person basically sends a correspondence saying like, hey, I love your show, I love your kids, you guys are an awesome family. I wanted to give you like some thoughts. I wanted to mention to you that like, I was thinking you guys should try to get on Extreme Makeover Home Edition, and here's some information. I don't know why she specifically was like giving this information, but I guess she had looked up or had some connection to the casting department, and she was telling them like, you should apply for this show.
It's all gonna sit. Next time I'm gonna go at it.
Okay. So this is a big deal.
And it was clearly like a fan thinking that they would reach out and have some positive interaction with this family. Now, Kate's response is only to John. So most of these response emails, they're not going directly to the person who's actually trying to communicate with her. It'll just be like Kate making fun of that person to her husband, John. And that's what she does here. She basically says like this. She writes an email to John in which she's like, ha, 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 he. This girl obviously doesn't understand how the world of television works. Thanks, but no thanks. So she just writes that to John so that John can write like a more centered, calmer email back to the girl that hopefully wouldn't offend her.
This is your first television interview
By myself.
by yourself.
In 4 years.
So what does that mean to you?
I think I can get a lot off my chest. She doesn't speak from the heart. I speak from the heart.
There are other emails in which Kate is just like turning down all of these like interviews, book proposals, people that are coming up and being like, hey, I want to do something with you. And her responses to John are frequently like, what a loser. Like, we're not working with that company. This person doesn't have the money we need. So it's just a lot of responses that are kind of like her thinking she's better than everyone else.
And I think I can get a lot of truth out there instead of speculation.
Speculation stemming from months of tabloid gossip and dozens of magazine covers. Standing up for himself for the first time in our exclusive interview, Jon Gosselin, the other half of the parenting duo of John and Kate plus 8.
She even gets super annoyed when John forwards her an email from a coordinator of like a special group. And it's a group that is for mothers of super twins. So people who have multiple kids like Kate, probably from her point of view, she wouldn't want to be involved in a group like that because it would kind of like emphasize to her that she's not that special.
Says he is ready to speak out, starting with who ended their relationship.
Who made the first move?
She made the first move. She knows the truth. I wish to God she would speak from emotion.
And the person is just like talking to John and asking if he wants to get involved at all in the group. And Kate sends this annoyed email to John in which she states, these people are so retarded.
Do you love Kate?
I will always love Kate as the mother of my kids. But to tell you right now, at this point of what's going on, I do not love Kate.
So it's just a lot of behind the scenes information in which like Kate is kind of in her own mind. She's this like God-fearing, loving, positive, got it all, super organized mom. But behind the scenes, she's really just being a jackass to everyone. She's ordering people around. She's in full control of everything that happens around her. She's being super OCD. She is being selfish. So Hoffman's just pointing out that all of this is going on through her email correspondence.
32-year-old Jon Gosselin was the middle child of 3 boys, born to an oral surgeon and a nurse from small-town Pennsylvania.
And that's Kate, my beautiful fiance, and my beautiful mother.
But then Hoffman breaks out the emails I've been waiting for all along, all throughout this book. This is some correspondence back and forth between Kate and John. Well, it's mostly Kate just talking to John, and it happened in March of 2008. Now, we already know from the prior chapter that Kate is expressing in her journals like she's really frustrated with John already. She thinks all these horrible things about him. She's saying things like he needs to get right with God. He's teaching our children like to go away from the Lord. And it was all because he spent like the day in Philadelphia for his job and he went out for lunch and like bought something at a restaurant as opposed to, I guess, eating whatever like brown paper bag sandwich Kate would have wanted him to have.
John met Kate at a picnic.
There's one good face you can't miss.
Their fairy tale romance had all the promise of a successful marriage. And thanks to fertility treatments, Kate got pregnant in a big way.
So she's being like hardcore critical of John's interactions with the kids and sort of being like, you're not a good father, you're not a good enough husband, there's more that you should be doing. Even though at this point he is the main like financial provider, now they're getting money from the TLC show. Of course, that's helping significantly, but he's also on the show. So, I mean, he's contributing in certain ways. And then we all, of course, saw him on the show. He was certainly helping with the kids. I think the biggest thing. Now, every relationship is different and every person is different in how they will contribute to their household. We all know that. For me, when I watched the show, I thought that Kate was so lucky to have a husband that was so playful with the kids. So for me, I felt like one of the things that John did bring to the table was like if Kate was going to go off and she would be like in the kitchen making 25,000 milk bottles and focusing on herself, John would be in the backyard running around through the sprinkler with the kids and like organizing them and like kicking the ball around with them. I mean, he was interacting with them. Whereas Kate was always kind of like lording over them, like at a distance, being like, do this, do that. This is how it goes. You know, so John kind of had a different way of being, I think, a good parent to his children. But according to Kate, through all these journals and emails, what we're seeing is a wife who's very unhappy with the way her husband is participating in home life. She thinks he's clearly not doing enough.
Would welcome 6 new babies, and TLC would give birth to a new show.
The noise is deafening.
And Hoffman says there's kind of like accumulation of all of this in an email exchange in the March of 2008, when Kate sent John a list of kids should help at home. This email also included what she had created as a Goslin family mission statement.
Decided that we will separate.
It's just not good for our kids for us to be arguing in front of our kids.
With divorce proceedings underway, 34-year-old Kate began announcing her feelings about their split.
And a list of principles based upon this statement that Kate created. Hoffman points out that this email she simply greeted him with, "Here's what I want." Not, "Hello, John. Hey, John, check this out." She literally started this email with the sentence, "Here's what I want."
Since then, she's appeared on magazine covers and TV talk shows.
Is he a good father?
He is.
Why the pause?
His decisions right now are not ones that I would necessarily make.
Hoffman writes, she instructed John to write out the items on her list and include a picture to describe the task next to each item. Kate wrote, "These are the 10 ways to help at home." Okay, so number 1, clean up toys. Number 2, sweep the floors. Number 3, turn the lights off. Number 4, make your bed. Number 5, brush your teeth. When I first saw this, I thought it was like just for John, and I thought, you're making a list like that he should brush his teeth. I was like really taken aback by that. But then I realized that hopefully that's probably more centered on wanting the kids to take care of that on their own. Number 6, put things back. Number 7, put your dirty laundry in a hamper. Number 8, put your Number 9, empty trash cans. Number 10, straighten the bathroom. Sounds pretty basic. And then we go to the Goslin family mission statement. This is what Kate wrote. "We, the people of the Goslin family, do dedicate ourselves to telling others about God's love."
In a recent People magazine article, Kate jokingly blamed an alien abduction for John's assumed transformation.
Scratch-offs!
From computer technician to rock and roll jet setter.
So here we have like Kate, so crazy to me because there's this undercurrent in Kate's life of constantly turning towards religion and God, but I don't really see her as implementing the principles, the foundations that you learn about Jesus when you're in a Christian church. I don't see her implementing those in her everyday life. I do wonder a lot about her family of origin. We've talked about this. It does seem like her father and mother were incredibly strict, and her father was a pastor and he was also in the Navy. And I just have to imagine that the kind of household that would create a Kate Goslin would be like quite dysfunctional in its own ways, especially with this idea that it would be so like strictly prohibitive, and that's how Kate kind of internalizes everything in her own life, that she strictly prohibits herself from being certain ways or doing certain things, and then she also puts that out on everyone else around her.
Well, you are accused. I mean, I brought these magazines. This is her, right? She's looking good. Kate Strikes Back. That's what they use in Star Trek against the evil empire.
Right.
Yours.
Right.
What do you think when you hear about one of these magazine covers?
Okay, now Kate said that these 2 basic principles need to be part of the household, and they come through the mission statement. Number 1, love and honor God and others. And then 2, be thankful for our blessings. Now this is quite the opposite kind of principle as what we've seen Kate living on an everyday basis. I mean, she certainly has not shown that she's so grateful for the blessings. She's always wanting more, 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 cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And, beyond the money, it's like she wants more and more and more and more and more from John, more and more and more and more and more from the kids, more and more and more and more and more from the teachers and the babysitters. It's never good enough. So to list that we need to be thankful for our blessings is quite ironic.
I would say let's finish what we got to finish and move on with our lives. And stop feeding into the frenzy.
Excuse me right here. Excuse us.
The media feeding frenzy and the Goslings reality series are a long way from the simple beginnings and tender moments.
She said, number one, honor mom and dad by obeying them. So we've got obeying first and foremost, number one. You can tell that she's writing this because she's angry that kids are being kids and not always listening to her, and John isn't always listening to her, and she needs people to obey. Number two, trust God always and completely. Number three, honor God by remembering your blessings and choosing to be thankful for what we have. Again, like she's expecting things from others that she can't do herself, because this certainly isn't a part of her personality behind the scenes based upon what we're reading here. Number four, honor each other by choosing to love, be patient, and help one another.
Hello, I need your help.
Go to 11.
No, I can't. Would
Why?
you come here? Because.
But the chaotic stress of raising 8 children began taking its toll on the young couple. Even viewers noticed.
I'm not talking to you anymore.
I don't know how patient she is with John, but she definitely wants some help from him. She wants him doing everything. Number five, honor the family by always choosing family first before other opportunities. Okay, I found this principle kind of interesting because I think that it's centered towards the kids. I don't know if she meant it more towards John. I mean, I think as a parent, we often are slated towards picking our family over opportunities outside of the family, and that's something that is a part of what being a parent is. But I don't know that a child, should really have this type of situation embedded into their mind, especially when they're on a TLC show.
I got married at 22, I had twins at 23, I had sextuplets at 27, by 20s, and then raising all those kids until your 30s, and you don't even think about what's going on around you. You just do what you got to do to survive.
Because I think part of what she's saying here, how it comes off to me is like, hey, if other people end up coming up to you and they're like, do you want to go on this other show or do this or do that? Remember that the family will always come first. Number six, honor the family and God by choosing to speak positive and encouraging words. Number seven, love each other. Number eight, realize that God built their family with the exact members for his purpose. Enjoy their unique qualities individually and as a whole to contribute to their family. And this is where I really call bullshit on Kate Gosselin.
But John says his marriage didn't end because of parenting demands or because of the nagging that Kate does on the show.
Are you annoyed with me?
Yes, very.
Why?
Because the way you yell at me in there like I'm a freaking dog.
He says off camera, the relationship was much worse.
This is a big red flag for me of how disingenuous she's being in her life. Because this number 8, she hasn't practiced this at all in any way, shape, or form, clearly with her son, Colin. One of the biggest surprises of my whole rabbit hole learning about the Gosselin family is to realize that there's a reality of, Kate had a child who, for whatever reason, and I'm sure that there were reasons, I'm sure that there were behaviors that Kate was really struggling with this child. She decided to segregate him from the rest of the family. And I can't say for sure if that was the right or the wrong decision, but she really just kind of left him.
I don't trust her anymore. I was abused.
What does that mean, you're being abused?
I was verbally abused. I was beaten down. She separated me from my family, my mom and my brothers. They say to me, it's so good to have the real John back. It's so good to have the warm, loving, kind, caring person that we knew you before you got married.
She was done with him. And even so, even with that being like a grand mistake in my mind, I still think that you could kind of turn it around and come back if once the child turns 18 and they're getting older or whatever, you kind of change things up and do what you can to accept that child now. He's an adult. Whatever has happened. And I know from Colin's perspective and his dad's perspective and other people who are talking about Colin, he hasn't done anything horribly wrong. They're saying like this is unfair. But even if it wasn't, even if he did do some things that everybody's upset about, your job as a mother is, one, to love him unconditionally, but also two, to help his siblings find love and acceptance for him no matter what. Like, especially when you have 8 kids, the chances are that 1 or 2 or a couple of those kids are going to have major differences from the other children. You might have one child with special needs, one child who decides that they're going to be gay, whatever the situation may be. Even more so than parents, I feel that siblings are in a place where they can provide utter acceptance for their brothers and sisters. They can love them and be there for them in ways that maybe even parents aren't sometimes, because parents are very focused and very worried about like how the kid is going to turn out and providing some boundaries, whereas your sibling doesn't really have to be part of that. They don't have to be involved with all the boundaries. So, from my point of view, one of Kate's biggest failures as a mom is the fact that her kids are not all together. We're literally hearing from these kids that they've ostracized Colin and they want nothing to do with him. You know, that's from Maddie, one of the twins, Maddie's own words. Publicly, she's spoken out and said, like, there's a lot of problems with my brother. I don't want him around me. You know, if I was Kate Goslin, I would see that as a major failure on my part as a mom, no matter what was going on with Colin. You know, I mean, there are very few things that I would be like, yeah, you just have to speak out and say we're done with this child. It would have to be such an extreme situation, and there would be like so much abuse that had happened that you were like, it's completely unsafe for me or my kids to be around this person. And that just does not seem to be the case, because we have all these other adults in his life standing up and saying, this is a good kid, like a really good kid. So what Kate is saying and what Maddie, the eldest sister, is parroting, I think, from Kate, it just doesn't make sense. Now, Maddie and every other sibling has a right to make their own decisions, you know, especially once they turn 18, it's up to them. Hannah has chosen to be with her brother, Colin, but the other kids haven't, and they have that right. But I would feel as a mother that I failed if my children made these kinds of choices to ostracize one of the kids. That's sad. That's wrong. I would feel awful about it.
I mean, she used to hold the kids over my head and say, you know, don't spend time with your mom, spend time with your kids. Why can't I spend time with my mom and my kids together? I'm not going back to that lifestyle.
She
ever.
changed you?
I've changed for her because I loved her. But don't forget who you are. That's what happened to me.
The rest of this chapter is all about like the lists and demands that Kate would make whenever they were like traveling, whenever they were doing something for the show. She just had like a very specific accommodations that she would request. And whenever they were like, well, what do you want to eat? She would send this like extremely detailed list. Now for me, like, I don't think that's too big of a deal, but I get that Hoffman is just continuing to support his argument that this is a person with such extreme OCD that she's difficult to be around. She's difficult to deal with, and people around her are having to like kind of control this nightmare and cover up the fact that she doesn't get along with a lot of different people.
Come on, John, don't do it lazy. Get up and do it. Daddy has a little trouble listening.
Reflecting on his failed marriage, John says he's had his share of doubts and his share of tears.
All right, chapter 18 will be later tonight or tomorrow, and this is an interesting one because Hoffman talks about his relationship with John and the fact that TLC, like the show, depicted him in a very different light than Hoffman sees him on an everyday basis. Specifically, like, I find this really interesting.
I felt maybe I was too passive. Maybe I didn't stand my ground 10 years ago. Maybe I didn't stick up for my kids. But it's gone. I can't get that back.
Hoffman feels that TLC and the production company really tried to depict John as the lazy slob to Kate's like perfect organizer personality. But Hoffman says when he's around Goslin, like he's never been around such a neat freak before in his life. So it's interesting to see. This really stands in opposition to what we saw on the show. Thanks for joining me here today. Let's take a look at chapter 18 and head down another rabbit hole tomorrow.